I call the member for Ryde.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My electorate of Ryde has a very high and growing proportion of renters. That's a fantastic community, and well over 40%. 37.2% of them are private renters, and there's 3.1% in social housing. They make a wonderful contribution to our community. In my own apartment where I live in Meadowbank, it's a building that is half occupied by tenants, both long-term and short-term, some of them that I've gotten quite close to in recent years. I'm highly conscious of the trends that exist in our existing rental market. Ryde is a wonderful place to live. People want to move here from all over the state and indeed the country. Some, of course, coming to Ryde as their very first place when they migrate as a new citizen or migrant from another country. And why wouldn't you? There's so much on offer. Great university, beautiful natural bushland, incredibly well-connected community, but most importantly, a cohort of citizens who are compassionate, hardworking and aspirational for the future. So there's a lot that brings people to Ryde, and it's no wonder that we have a high portion of people who choose to rent because the circumstances suit them. However, I'm conscious that it is a system that has left many people worse for wear. It's complicated, it's an old system, and it's one that, if I can speak frankly and honestly, is not necessarily set up in their interest. And so that's something that has been brought to my attention, both in my previous role as the Mayor and a councillor, but certainly now as the local MP. And I'm very pleased that discussions around housing, property and rent are occupying the attention of this chamber and this parliament. And it's part of the reason why on Sunday the 29th of October I'll be hosting a Ryde Rental Forum or Expo at the Marist College Eastwood School Hall. The purpose of this forum is to give members of our community the opportunity to meet with local service providers, to understand better their rights, the responsibilities, and to get help and assistance with many of the often complicated processes that impede a tenant living in our community. Some of the things that we want to be able to help with are advice on resolving their tenancy issues, filling in those complicated tenancy forms, preparing for NCAT tribunals if unfortunately somebody finds themselves before that body, advocacy and support to talk to the lessor or the agent if they're finding themselves in trouble, housing applications and maintenance assistance, of course, when things go wrong, financial counselling and coaching, support for our called communities, which will include translation services, tenancy and housing assistance for our Indigenous Australians, and of course emergency and domestic violence crisis support. And I'm really grateful to some of the wonderful local community organisations and providers that are coming along to participate and support, and want to give a particular shout out to the Northern Sydney Area Tenants Service, Link Wentworth Housing, Community Legal Centres New South Wales, the Northern Centre, the Salvation Army, Christian Community Aid, Birribee Housing, Ray White and the Community Migrant Resource Centre. Now, I recognise that no government has really got this issue right, and part of the purpose of the forum is, yes, to help people with their current or existing issues, but to also hear from them, to gain important feedback and to consult with them and get their ideas and suggestions for how we can improve and make this complicated system better, to make it really work for the tenants that live in our community. And I'm really pleased, as I mentioned, about the discussions that are being had in this House, because the key issue, of course, is often around the affordability and access via supply for these important premises. And it's one of the reasons why I've stood up in this place before and called on the new government to urgently introduce or get rid of the no grounds eviction. This is something that is affecting people right across the state, not just in Ryde. It is something that enjoys the support, of course, of the Liberals and Nationals, of the Labor Party, and it is something that should be introduced quickly because it could make a real difference for people who have found themselves on the wrong side of an eviction notice. I also wanted to address and reassert my support for doing more to reduce the attractiveness for those, particularly, as I said in my inaugural speech, foreign investors who choose to retain vacant properties in this state. We know from the 2021 census that there's around 300,000 of them here in New South Wales, a large number of them in my electorate in Ryde. I'd encourage members to take a walk through any of our high density suburbs of an evening, and you can see anecdotally that there are vacancies. We need to reduce the attractiveness for that so that we can get people into properties now. We talk a lot about supply, and of course that's important via DAs and new builds, but we could get new supply in the market today if we had existing properties occupied by people who need housing now. And I'm calling on this Parliament to continue to improve its efforts to get those properties into the market now. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.